Hey, all. I'm speaking to you from something that's not my master bathroom in my house. We're gonna pretend it's not that, right? Because everything else is being cleaned in our house right now. So, anyway, here I am.
So if you hear flushing in the background,
You won't hear anything. It might sound. I hope it doesn't sound too cavernous or anything like that. And no, that window is not real. That's not what it looks like outside my house right now. Anyway, let's go to Russ before I stop talking.
Well, I just wanted to say with the NFL season coming up that we all may have a team that we feel is not getting recognition, and everybody's going to pick Kansas City to win the Super Bowl, and that's all well and good. They might just do that, although Houston stinks, so I wouldn't go by last night. But end of the day, I'll start it off because my team for this would be the Indianapolis Colts. They just got Phillip Rivers. They built their offensive lineup for Andrew Luck, which, of course, we know what happened with Andrew Luck. And they've got they have a great running back tandem, actually. And so I look at them and I say, you know what? This is a team, the running backs are Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor. This is a team where Rivers, with a change of scenery, getting out of the Chargers system, could really help them. So I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts to maybe surprise and maybe come out of the East. We'll see.
Jan.
AFC, brother.
Jan, go ahead.
You have a pick?
It's a good question. I mean, I like Indy as well this year a little bit. I think the Rivers move was a nice move for them. And I agree with you, Russ, as a Deshaun Watson owner in 2 leagues. Thank God for garbage time points last night because it was brutal. Watch that game. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Team I'm going to go for, I would have probably gone higher on them. I like Denver, even though they lost Von Miller. We talked about for Aaron Jerry Jeudy. If Cortland Sutton is healthy, I don't think they're going to be as bad as everybody makes them out to be. I think offensively they're going to be a lot better, especially with Gordon and Lindsey at the running back attack. Defensively, they could have issues now without Miller, but I like Denver in terms of where they're going offensively with Drew Lock, the quarterback.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't have any idea who would be a surprise team, so I looked up online to see who other people were saying were the surprise teams, and the one list I saw, I guess you could consider Miami as a potential surprise team, but they were so bad last year at the beginning of the year, and then rallied at the end of the. If they have 6 or 7 victories with Fitzpatrick or Tua, I don't think that's a big surprise. And I despise the New York Giants. So
no, we're talking about a team. You got to talk about a team that's going to at least make the playoffs.
Yeah, I would have said Denver had a good chance, but then the Miller injury kills them. I'll go in the NFC, maybe Atlanta. Okay. Ryan is still a good quarterback, and they just had a really bad year, so maybe they can turn it around. They were a 10-11 team, a 10-11 win team a couple years ago. Maybe they can bounce back.
I'm not laughing at you, Mike. I just get a text from my wife saying, "Just tuned into your podcast. You look terrible in yellow."
It's great.
This goes along with the chat room earlier saying that I had a Kim Jong-un haircut earlier this week. So my morale, my self-esteem right now, is like slowly fading. Kevin, how about the NFL for you?
Yeah, so Kev, is it going to be Detroit? Is that your?
Yeah, it actually is.
Oh my God!
It's so funny because I just had this conversation with my son-in-law. It wouldn't have been until last night where he said, "Have you noticed that people are picking the Lions to make the playoffs?" And I actually hadn't noticed that. And I said, really? And I said, what are they basing that on? And he said, well, it's the offense. They think the offense is, going to be pretty good. And so I was thinking about Denver as well because I have Judy in 2 fantasy leagues, and he's a dynamic presence. But I think I will go with the Lions, just not based on anything I've seen because to be honest with you, I've been so caught up in the hockey that I haven't really followed training camp whatsoever, and there's been no exhibition. So just based on what my son-in-law told me about last night, and this morning I read that someone has picked them to win the Super Bowl because this is 2020, and a lot of weird stuff.
Wait, so are they going to exercise the ghost of Bobby Lane? Are they going to try and talk to Bobby Lane on a Ouija board? Is that how this is going to work out?
Yeah. So I would have, until last night, I would have said the Lions are going to be 8-8 because that's what I always say. You know, but my son-in-law tells me that a lot of people are picking them at 9-7. So,
All right.
Eric, Adrian Peterson, DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson, triumvirate of running back that's going to carry him.
So Swift, they had such high expectations, but I did look at the depth chart this morning, and he's 4th on it, and he's been on the. He's not practicing fully with the team this week.
Oh, okay.
Injury, so
Yeah,
I got Golladay in one of my leagues and Peterson in the other. So
Eric Hippel's going to make a comeback.
Hey, I like that.
Yeah, real big
he was only good on Monday night.
Yeah, Jeff Conlow.
See, I would have said Gary Danielson, Michael.
I'm going to go with Jeff Conlow. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Soul. I really like what Matt Girazio.
You stop.
I also want to say that beyond that, the Baltimore Colts and any one of those Rough Rider teams out there.
If you just don't like sports, just say so.
I love sports, Russ. I played football at a very high level.
It's hard to tell.
Played on ice, known as hockey. The rest he can do without.
I'm going to say it's very hard to tell.
I mean, I can't. This has been such a whirlwind of hockey. I can't even imagine thinking about another sport right now. Like I can't.
There's 5 sports. There's 5 major sports playing at the same time.
Yeah, yesterday was the first.
It's easy for a person without kids to say, Russ, but I'm telling you right now.
Yesterday was the first.
Daughter in college and his son schooling at home, and I'm helping him all the time, and hockey doing what it's doing. There is no way in hell I'm going to understand what's happening.
Yesterday was the first time that Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, I think it was MLS, WNBA. It was like 7 leagues were all playing at the same time.
Yeah. And for that to happen, horrible things had to happen in the universe, Mike.
For
that to occur, think of the horrible stuff that had to occur.
Yeah.
Speaking of, we'll talk about this when the show starts.
Yeah.
We got a hockey thing to start it off, which I think is kind of interesting.
All right, let's go to that now.
Let's go with that.
I remember this morning I saw that there's a asteroid's heading towards the planet, and it could impact the planet on election day. This is honestly the truth. Okay. There's only a 0.5% chance that it hits the planet, and if it does, it probably won't be a big deal because it'll probably hit the ocean. But this is 2020. Does anyone
probably hit a mail facility center with all the absentee ballots? That's what.
Does anyone really think that this asteroid isn't going to hit us and isn't going to hit us badly? I mean, look at what's happening in the world.
Is it a Republican or a Democratic?
It's a darn good question. There's no way in 2020 they're like it's only a 0.5% chance.
I'm rooting for the asteroid and sweet death at this point.
If the asteroid gets us back and gets my family back into quarantine, I'm all for it.
Weirdly, I just watched the movie Armageddon.
Yeah.
Damn it.
It's funny because when they showed this, like they talk about this on the website I saw, they said it won't be like that, but they showed a video of it, of the hitting the planet from Armageddon. I'm like, okay, well, it won't be like that.
Right.
It'll probably be fine. Okay. Just know that. Like we've all said, that should be 2020. It'll probably be fine.
It'll be like Y2K. Got it.
All right, here we go. Ready?
Yes.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Hockey World. It is Friday, September 11th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello, and Armageddon was a much better movie than Deep Impact.
I'm Jan Levine.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, and you had to get the date right today.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
I did.
And for me, guys, know that for me, the date has a very material impact. Given, unfortunately, my best friend was killed today in the towers on this date. So, may his memory be for a blessing, and rest in peace, Victor Walt. Huge Ranger fan.
Yeah, maybe we should handle it at the end of the show, but it strikes me that it's 19 years. It doesn't seem that long ago.
It's crazy.
No.
I mean, I was in Woodstock, New York, recording an album on this day 19 years ago. So it's just like everything, like everybody remembers everything that happened at that point in time.
And just think about what this country was like for the year after that in terms of how we all got along.
Isn't that the truth?
And how in the world did we get where we are today?
It's a freaking awesome point, Kevin.
Yeah. I mean, we probably hadn't been that unified since World War II.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I agree.
And now,
now too. Yeah, you're right. You're right because you're absolutely true. It was. I remember like everybody putting an American flag on their hockey helmet, or wherever, everything was. That's when that started. Remember that was like. I remember you couldn't buy like American flag stickers. They were selling out everywhere. I mean, this country was totally in a different place. Anyway, Kevin, let's talk about hockey, please. What do you have?
Yeah. Well, I just had an interesting conversation with an NHL team executive about an hour ago, and it was we just talked on this briefly, but the more I thought about it, I thought this would be something we really should discuss. And his point was that we're a copycat league, so because we're a copycat league and we're looking at the final 4 teams, where do you go? Because these 4 teams could not be more different.
Oh, I know.
And what he said is, you just got to piecemeal. He said it was like, and then, like ordering Chinese food, when you take one from column A and one from column B, because, you like the defensive play, of the Dallas Stars, but, you like the relentless forecheck of the Islanders. But, what you really love about that Islanders is that 4th line.
Yeah.
We've talked about how physicality has sort of diminished over the years, but this year in the playoffs, there's been sort of a resurgence, at least in celebrating the importance of that. Ryan Reeves, Patrick Maroon, the 4th line, Matt Martin with the Islanders, and it's certainly not the same physical play that we saw in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s, but. Right. It is relevant to what's happening on the ice. But
I know what I think we're going to copy from this year, because you're right. All 4 teams are different, but they all have something in common, and they all that I think we might be missing, and that is already, when you talk to people, people are already trying to copy that, and that is we have become a league that needs 2 goalies on every team. Like in a serious way, not just a backup goalie.
Okay, but I don't know if that's going to be like a top thing. I think it's a thing.
I think it has become an absolute.
Honestly, I wouldn't copy anything. I think this whole season's an anomaly because I think it has impacted different players differently, different teams differently, by being in the bubble, by being away from their families. I think there are some players that are excelling that normally wouldn't, and some players that are great that are not excelling. I wouldn't copy anything.
Well, I agree with Russ that maybe things can't be read in too much in this season because things are really up in the air and with the bubble and everything else. But honestly, if you look at the 2 teams that finished in the Stanley Cup final last year, St. Louis and Boston, and you look at the 4 teams that are in the conference finals this year, the Islanders, Tampa, Dallas, Vegas, to me, the common thread is they're all loaded on the blue line. You look at all the, Vegas loaded up with Theodore. They have Schmidt. They added Alec Martinez. Yeah. The Islanders, I think, are more, they don't have a number one, a great number one, but Pelech and Pulak and Devin Taves, they're a well-balanced unit. Dallas with Heiskanen and Klingberg and Lindell, and then Tampa, obviously, with Hedman and Sergachev and McDonough. They're all, the top half of their defense are all fantastic.
Well, so is Boston.
And
Boston
and St. Louis.
But I think go ahead, Mike, sorry.
No, Boston and St. Louis last year, I think that's the common thread. And teams that are trying to get away with having 1 or 2 good defensemen and overloading up front, I don't think that blueprint works. I think you have to be loaded on defense, and that covers up, maybe average goaltending. Because right now, I don't think Anton Khudobin is like a Vezina winner. He's a good goalie. He's a slightly above average goaltender, but Dallas's defense in front of him has been fantastic.
Yeah, but if you look around the defenses that lost, I think Yossi and Ryan Ellis and Ekholm measure up to any of these defenses.
They do.
They didn't last. And there are other defenses that were pretty good as well. So, it's almost like all these teams are kind of a hybrid. And even what X said, I think coaches have been more willing to use 2 goalies than we've ever seen in the past, and maybe that'll stick. But nobody's thinking about arresting Vasilevsky in Tampa Bay.
No, but you're not thinking about.
So we spoke about it yesterday, though.
If you have a Vasilevsky, you're going to just play him all the way through. And
sure,
I think they would have had only 1 goalie in Dallas if they had their druthers, and it wouldn't even have been Khudobin.
Right. But that's my point because the difference between Dallas and Colorado was that Khudobin was better than Francouz. I mean, at the end of the day, it was a battle of backups, right? And then Francouz gets hurt as well. But I mean, and in Nashville, the goaltending lets them down.
Well,
in certain places. Certain teams that even in the Rangers, I thought the goaltending let them down.
Well, this is the age-old argument that we've gotten into over the last few years, and it may be changing because the landscape of the NHL has changed.
I'm finally right, Cap. Mike, come on.
No, you're not. When you have a goaltender like Carey Price who's making $10.5 million. Ideally, you cannot pay a backup. Now they are, and I think it was Bergevin's stupidity to do this. But paying a backup $4.3 million in Jake Allen is just bizarre.
That's not a copycat thing that they did right there. I mean,
no, but
that's very much of it.
Well, what I'm saying, Eck, is you look at what the landscape is in terms of what goaltenders are going to be getting in this flat cap world. Where we heard yesterday from Elliot Friedman that Leonard. The contract, if Leonard signs with Vegas, might be 5 years, $25 million. That's a $5 million cap hit. That's 13th in the NHL in terms of salary. I don't think Holtby or Crawford or Markstrom are getting any more than $5 million in free agency, and that is a symptom of these starting goaltenders not playing 60, 65 games. They're going to play 40 and 45 games. They're going to be a 1A to another goaltender's 1B, and the general managers are not going to pay the number one goaltenders as much as Bobrovsky and Price got.
Here's what Mikey in our chat room says right here. Next year's compressed schedule, you'll need 2 good goalies. Yes, you will.
Here's the thing, though. Yesterday I can imagine that Braden Holtby and some of the other potential free agent goalies uttered an expletive when they saw what Joe Sakic said in Colorado, because I talk about this all the time, but the goalie market is never as strong as you want it to be. Goalie, and now with Joe Sakic saying we're coming back with these 2 guys, that's one more team off the list. What if Calgary says that? What if Calgary says, "Hey"?
But I won't believe Calgary. I believe Sakic. I don't believe Calgary.
Well, but you don't know that, Russ. I mean, you
don't.
But you think you know it, but you don't know it. Okay, so if Calgary says, we're gonna keep those 2 goalies, or any of the other teams that we think need a goalie. That's 2 off the goalie list. Where are all these goalies going to go?
Right.
Like, if you're a goalie, you got to sign.
That drives the money down. That's going to drive the money down.
And if I'm a goalie, I'm signing as soon as I possibly can.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and if I have a chance to stay with my team for half decent money, I'm doing that. I'm doing whatever I can to stay, because there is going to be no one left.
There's talk of Leonard signing this deal before this series is over.
He will. I'm sure he will.
And that's one of my points, though. Leonard was picked up as an insurance policy and now is leading this team.
No, it was more than that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with Russ on that.
That was the guys. That was the guys of the deal. Yeah, no.
All right, okay. All right, so we all think that Fleury there's something very much wrong with him.
It's smarter than that.
We like Leonard, Russ. We know you're not particularly in favor of him over Fleury, given your view of Fleury. But
I mean, Russ
talked about it yesterday. The viewpoint is drafting goalies every year, as Russ was proposing yesterday, and basically having a pipeline so you can save on your backup goalie. And I still think there is a separation between the 1 and the 2, but it's getting narrower, so you can go 50-30. The era of guys playing 65, 70 games has long passed, especially, as Funky Cole said, compressed schedule. Given the workload, given everything else, you kind of have to make sure that you have a good backup, given what we've seen the last couple of years.
Well, Eck, watching that game last night, I figured you had to be rubbing your hands with glee because the 2 goals in regulation that Leonard gave up, I think, were directly his fault. He didn't have
I enjoy other people's pain and
sorrow. Yeah, you're a master of Schadenfreude.
Why would you think I'd be rubbing my hands in glee because Leonard made bad?
Because you clearly hate him. But no.
I don't hate Robin Leonard. Good Lord.
Okay, we'll go strong dislike.
Just because I think that Marc-Andre Fleury deserves a better shot than this.
I'm just kidding. But
I'm a big Marc-Andre Fleury guy too. I feel bad that this has happened. But my only point is I think they watched Fleury all season, and he wasn't playing at the same level, and they knew it, and they liked their team a lot, and they wanted to be not only sure, but I think they thought that Leonard was going to end up being the number one guy. They were already willing to, I think, to do that. Now, what'll happen next year? But here's the point I also wanted to make. I do think economics, as somebody pointed out, I don't know, Mike, was it you or one of you, is going to play a big role in what's happening to goalies. Like, and I'll give you an example. I was just kind of nosing around trying to figure out what Nashville was going to do with their goalie, and I was told that they're not going to do anything. You know, because they got two goalies there who are making reasonable amounts of money in their last years of their contract, and they've got a goalie down, and Russ, you may know who it is, down in Milwaukee, because I can't think of his name, who had an incredible season. And I think it was below, I think he had a 2-point or below with the goals against average. And they're content.
Connor Ingram, maybe?
Who'd you say?
Connor Ingram, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
Oh, Connor Ingram, yeah, he's a good goalie. He used to be with Calgary.
Yeah, and they just see him as, you know, the guy that they'll sort of bring up. Now, you could have in other years, I think, looked at the Nashville and said, well, Pekka-Rinne's at the end, they're going to start thinking about next year, you know, blah, blah, blah. And apparently they're not going to do that.
I think that's a mistake, Kevin. I do. I think because I think they're a team whose window is at its most open point it's going to be for a while. And I think there are things in Nashville that could go the wrong direction. If they have a couple years here, they could still make headway. Like if I was them, I would do something like I wrote about today. Like, why not pick up Marc-Andre Fleury for 2 years, you know?
You reported on this, Zach, and this is the thing. I mean, this would be a perfect scenario for Vegas, and this is why I don't think it'll happen. If they sign Leonard for what is being reported out there, which is $5 million, and and right now they're allocating $7 million towards Fleury's salary. If they retained $2 million on Fleury to move him, then they're still allocating $7 million on their starting goaltender for the next 2 years, even after they traded Fleury. I don't know if there are teams out there, and you know, don't get me wrong, I think Fleury's great, but I think the Vegas thinks he's declining, and I think probably a lot of people out there as well think he's declining. He still may be an upgrade in other situations, but you're not going to give up a significant assets to trade for a 36-year-old goaltender with injury issues and pay him $5 million a year. I don't think the market for that is going to be big.
I gotta tell you, I lost track of Ingram. And he was with Tampa. I gotta give Poyle credit. He traded a seventh for him.
Yeah, no,
and that's a sharp trade because Ingram was always a guy that had talent. I don't know why Tampa did that trade.
And Russ, he went to Florida after he went to Tampa. He was part of So
I don't know why they did that. I don't know why he fell out of favor. He was always a good prospect goalie. Like
1.92 goals against in 33 games with Milwaukee. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, they're real high on him. I didn't know him, and but they don't feel like they have any kind of goalie issue. They're content to ride it out with their two. And the other thing is there's just no way to move Pekka-Rinne either. So
no, there isn't.
Yeah, the only way out is if he retires, and I don't think
he's not retiring. So,
but Kev, here's the big one: the team that passed on Leonard was Carolina.
Yeah,
they clearly could have used him. They're probably not going to get him. Don't you think they're going to have to make a quick decision in this market, or otherwise they're not going to? If they don't get the right goalie again, they're going to waste a potential Stanley Cup team again.
Well, but there's really going to be what's there going to be? 2 teams looking for a goalie?
No, there'll be more than 2, I think.
Well, but I'm talking about number 1 goalies.
I think Calgary and San Jose are in there.
I think 1 or 2 will emerge after this that we didn't expect to.
Calgary, San Jose, Edmonton, Carolina, possibly Toronto if the Anderson rumors are true.
Toronto definitely.
Yeah, and the way this pans out, because I wrote about this a couple days ago, the way this is coming out right now, Eck reported something about Corey Crawford that the Blackhawks had offered him, I think, a $3.5 million contract. Leonard at $5 million. The prices on goalies, because the market is so inflated, are depressed. The Leafs see an upgrade out there that they can sign for longer than a year over Anderson. Like, say if they think Braden Holtby's an upgrade on Anderson, they can get him at 4.5 instead of 5. Then they'll trade Anderson, and believe me, there'll be teams interested in Anderson because he's a $5 million cap, but he's only owed $1 million on his contract. So in this market where teams don't want to pay money when 80% of the salary is already paid, that's a very attractive contract to trade for. So I think
they could trade Freddie Anderson for Jake Gardner, Mike.
Yeah, bite your tongue.
I don't know. I think this is the most confusing part of this offseason, and it is probably the most important part because of what we've seen, because of backup goalies coming in and helping teams get to where they've gotten to. I mean, Hudobin.
Here's the other issue too that we haven't talked about, and we should throw into the mix. And I just saw TSN had this story about the number of teams that are going to reduce their cap.
Yes.
And, I just looked it up to make sure I was right on that. But Carolina's got 2 goalies under contract.
Right.
And if you had to guess whether Carolina's going to be one of the teams that reduces their cap hit, would you guess that's
For
what
sure.
they're doing?
I would guess that, but there's probably they'll either try and trade or buy out, possibly.
I mean, incredible story today. Brian Burke was on XM saying how we saw the Sabres coaching staff was asked to take a pay cut.
And they said no.
They said no.
They said no because this was the second time they've been asked.
By the way, that takes courage.
It takes courage. But Ben Burke comes out and says, they're not the only team. He's like I've talked about 15 teams that have asked their people in their management or what have you to take pay cuts.
The only Canadian market team that has not asked scouts or management or support personnel to take pay cuts has been Toronto.
I don't think the Rangers have either, but they're not Canadian, but I don't think they have either. But Kev, here's what it's going to come down to. Tom Dundon is going to have to decide, do I want to win or am I going to keep my finances in check? Because if he does nothing with his goalies, he's not going to win a Stanley Cup with those 2 goalies. He's going to have to buy one of them out and at least get some sort of replacement.
Do you think that's why they didn't go further?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know if he thinks that. I don't really know.
I don't know if he thinks that either, but
he's wrong.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that think it.
Yeah.
I mean, Mrazek, was he that bad? And right.
I don't think that was the reason.
Well, I mean, but we know. Okay, before the deadline, we know that they tried to trade for Robin Lehner, and they balked at trading one of the extra first-round picks for Lehner, and then Lehner ended up.
Before you go through it, Mike, Kevin, do you think that that's true that they balked at a first-round pick for Lehner? I wasn't sure about that. I've asked around. I haven't been able to get a real good answer on that.
I know they were interested for sure, and I think they probably thought that the price was too high would be my guess. But I know they were interested.
And then they ended up trading the first-round pick to the Rangers for Brady Shea, which I think Brady Shea is a good defenseman, but
that was the surprising part of that whole thing.
Yeah, but they did that because at that point, Pesce was out, and Vatanen, who they had just traded for, was out, and there was another defenseman, and Dougie Hamilton was out, so they needed to replenish their defense. But their goaltending clearly killed them in this playoffs. I thought Reimer and Mrazek were weak against Boston. I mean, if they want to go through another year of having average goaltending in front of a really good defense and an offense that's improving, go ahead, throw away another season. I think they need to get a goaltender, and they've got enough assets on defense and enough young prospects in that organization that they can make that deal happen.
It's interesting, but because of the split goalie now, you look at Reimer and Mrazek, and they both have a really solid save percentage, but like Jake Allen and Reimer are ahead of Vasilevsky, and no one's going to say they're better.
Right.
But I do think they didn't make saves at the right time. I honestly felt like that was an issue.
That was the point I was going to make. Both those guys made a lot of saves, and sometimes it just becomes too overwhelming. Like, if they had been 941, they would have been better. They were at 929.
I know it's high, but
not Robin Lehner. I mean, what's he at? I bet he's probably not at 929.
No, but he has 4 shutouts.
Yeah,
I agree.
Frederick Anderson had a 936 save percentage. That didn't prevent Eck from killing him.
I killed him too. That also didn't prevent rumors from happening with him either, coming right out of Toronto. Right. I mean, I do. Kev, I don't know what else they would have to do, but I just feel like if they're going to roll with the same goaltending, that they're going to have the same problem once they hit the second, third round of the playoffs again.
I'm not disputing that they could upgrade their goaltending for sure. I'm just thinking I thought there were a lot of reasons why they lost, and goaltending was just among them. I don't.
Okay,
think
well, let's see. Let me ask you this: would you agree that had they gotten Leonard, they'd probably still be playing?
No.
No. Wow.
No.
Okay.
I think the overall interesting thing, and it's not just in the goalie market, but it's in the free agent market. And Kev, we've been hearing these stories about we've been hearing these stories about teams with their internal budgets that they're not, like, some of them are not going to come anywhere close to 81.5 million. So you're going to have a free agency situation on October 9th when it starts, of teams not shopping at Nordstrom's. They're going to be shopping at the dollar store because they don't want to spend the money on players.
I thought about Buffalo, right? So let's use Buffalo as an example. If they really truly stop dead at 72 million, they're not making the playoffs. Like, it's a guarantee they're not going to make the playoffs unless heaven and earth happens and everybody has a career year, which can happen. It can happen in any sport. But if you look at who they have right now, they're not going to have much maneuverability.
So if they spend to the max, are they still making the playoffs?
I don't know. It depends who they get.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they don't have the confidence in Kevin Adams to spend to the cap and think that they can make the playoffs. But just think of the ramifications of what that means. If they're capped at 72 million, that probably means they sign Sam Reinhart to a 2-year bridge deal and let him. And he'll go to UFA in 2 years. That means possibly a bridge deal for Rasmus Dahlin instead of signing him to a long-term deal. Maybe it means they look for somebody to take Jeff Skinner's contract, although I don't know anybody's going to take $9 million off their hands. I mean, there's a number of things. They may walk away from guys who are restricted free agents with arbitration eligibility, like Brandon Montour. I mean, there are a number of situations, if they're budget constrained, that they may do things simply out of fiscal responsibility that hockey-wise make no sense whatsoever.
I mean, I'll go out on a limb here. If they lowball Sam Reinhart, would it be shocking if he holds out and says, you know what, I'm going to opt out right now?
Or signs an offer sheet.
But I could see players opting out if they're not getting what they want to take the risk of, again, playing in a COVID. Like, there's going to be a backlash to this, Kev, I think, from some players.
Well, for sure. And I also think that if there was ever a season where there would be some logic to doing offer sheets, this would be it, because it's not just the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, the word around the street is there's going to be several teams that are going to lower their payroll.
Yeah, we keep hearing Barzal, right? That's the most popular.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to face issues on how to do a competitive team. Arizona is going to be one of those teams, and they've got no offense already. So how are they going to get offense?
They've got cap issues, huge cap issues. We went through that.
I
wanted to touch base on this because I've noticed something in the last 48 hours changing. I've been talking to a lot of people because obviously we talked about the draft is a month away now. UFA is less than a month away. UFA day is almost exact. I think it's exactly a month away. Yeah. Depending on when they have it, October 9th.
October 9th, 12.
But it could be 7 days after the season. The UFA day is still apparently in limbo slightly, but it's because it could be 7 days after the Stanley Cup final.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. The one thing I've noticed that's really been changing a ton is I was hearing before a lot of talk about, okay, maybe we would start this next season in the bubble. Start in the bubble. We talked about this yesterday, possibly being in a bubble. Now, I'm hearing more and more teams talking about the fact that they believe that Major League Baseball has finally figured out how to do what they're doing the right way. And that I'm starting to get the impression very strongly that the NHL will start like Major League Baseball, is playing to empty arenas on their own versus starting in a bubble.
But baseball's had mixed results, Zach. There are
has had mixed results, but it's amazing. And I keep telling that people, but it's amazing how people are starting to say, well, it looks like baseball's, they've figured it out now. They figured out the right way to do it.
There's 3 or 4 teams that have played 5 less games than everybody. Imagine that happens. Hold on. Imagine that happens in the NHL because of the way their scoring system is. it would wreak havoc.
Well,
Oh,
but
yeah,
only in the last 2 or 3 weeks has the delay, has the cancellations due to COVID disappeared. Now there's been like rain delays or rain cancellations and stuff like that. But the cautionary tale here, Eck, is what was reported out of the KHL yesterday, where seven players on one team were tested positive, and they canceled that, and then Jokerit canceled their, I think, 5 games.
5 games, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, there's no. I mean, I think the issue. I mean, I'm not saying there's a perfect answer here, but I'm just saying that there's an. What I was trying to get is, if you've heard any of the, gotten this temperature as well, Kevin, that there's this leaning towards that versus the bubble. That the bubble, we're starting to hear more about how the bubble was tough on players and being away for that long. And they might not want to do. They might rather start it this way and figure out a way to do that. Have you heard?
Yeah, and you're starting to see like the technology, like the NFL. I just saw on television this morning. You know, everybody's wearing those wrist things so that they can track better. And
well, the NHL guys have that too with the pass system.
Yeah,
they do.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, you know the clear thing that you see at the airport. They wear those, and their phone basically. Well, I don't know if they're wearing them, but it's on their phone, and their phone checks them through different checkpoints.
Yeah. I mean, and there's no. I mean, I was asking somebody, you know, when we know about vaccines coming out, that's a whole other issue.
Oh, forget that. I mean, that's.
But I'm just saying that, you know, if once we actually do have officially a safe vaccine and all that, would professional athletes, because they're so important to the economy, be like in line to get that? Talk about a bad can of worms. Like that was something I heard about.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah,
that the athletes are going to be first in line for that.
Not first in line, but like, you know, when you know how.
Yeah, I think they're going to be down the list.
I do too. I don't
think you can sell that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But there is an economical thing about it. I guess someone was saying, I don't know that it's going to be a debate that we're going to have.
Here's what I don't understand, and maybe someone else can help me. I've been asking around, and I have not got a good answer.
Mm-hmm.
What's the drive to play 82 games if you can't play with fans?
Right.
Well,
that's a great question.
Yeah, because it's all you get out of it is
TV money.
Well, you get some TV money, but we're still a gate revenue driven league.
Agree.
So.
Well, I posed this to Russ yesterday because, I mean, okay, say for example, Bill Daly came out earlier this week and said, more than likely December 1st is not going to fly. Maybe it's a beginning of January. Maybe it's mid-January. If it's mid-January, if they wanted to play an 82 games schedule and they're playing 4 games a week, then you're talking about the end of June before the regular season is over with. So that means playing playoffs in July and August, and then you're pushing the next season until November. At a certain point, you have to shorten the year so you can get back to the schedule where the year starts normally in October as it has in the past. But the loss here, if they lose 1/4 of their if it's 60 games with fans or 82 games with first quarter of the season without fans, I would think 60 games with fans is more preferable, but we don't know whether that means 16,000 fans in the building or it's going to be 50% or 25%.
But then the problem is then the people who are paying for the advertising for their broadcasts are going to be like, well, you're broadcasting 15 less games. Give me some money back.
Well, but Russ, if there are less people in the building, more people would be watching on TV. The ratings are high.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. You can't sell them on that. You're now if you're going to base it on ratings for every game, teams will get killed with their deals. You're talking about 17 less games. You tell an advertiser, don't worry, we're going to have better ratings, but it's going to be 17 less times, so that 1,000 less times we'll talk about your product or show your product. It's going to be a problem.
Well, if you're only letting in 4,000. People. You're only adding 12,000 to the potential television viewers. Sure. That isn't going to be enough,
right?
No, I agree, and I do know the NHL is very aware of momentum, right? They're all about momentum, and the idea is that they think they have good momentum going here. They're going into the draft, and they know that has some excitement. The UFA thing, that has some excitement, but how long they go from October 9th, say, when the UFA period starts, to when they start the season, they're terrified of losing the momentum that they have going now. at that point. So that's why I think you could see the either a bubble or,
Well, it's not technically what you're referring to in terms of the baseball model. There is no bubble. It's basically that the baseball teams practicing, what should be proper etiquette in terms of separating themselves from the public, not going out to casinos, not going out to bars, being responsible. And once Major League Baseball started doing that, so they started cracking down on the idiots like the Miami Marlins and the St. Louis Cardinals doing this stuff, there hasn't been many COVID cases. If the NHL does that, I mean, I heard the same complaints, Zach, about the bubbles too. In fact, the Eastern teams loved the Toronto bubble because of the amenities that they had, and now the Eastern teams that went to the West are complaining about the Edmonton bubble and the lack of amenities. So, I mean, I don't think they want to put themselves through that situation again, but I don't know how financially feasible it is for the league to be playing in front of empty buildings from December 1 to mid to late January and it to be financially feasible.
I still think the big issue, Eck, is because essentially concerts aren't going to happen until next spring.
Right.
These buildings are empty other than if they have sporting events. Like, they're literally empty.
Yeah, they really, that is a good point.
And that's probably what they're driving for, is to not have them be empty, because that's a problem for them.
I mean, I think the NHL feels like the players did them a really huge swell here by what they did, the NHL is going to give the players every opportunity to kind of pick what they do next, I think. As long as it's safe, I don't know we don't know what the answer is yet, because things are changing all the time, and are we going to are things going to be bad a month from now and all this stuff? But I think I have heard. What are your thoughts on, Kevin, on the bubble concept of starting with like the divisions, and bubble?
Yeah, well, I've heard that there's a group that is very interested in that, and one guy told me to count on it happening, but since then, I haven't heard positive things about that. People want to play in their own building, and players want to. So I don't know. The one thing I would say though, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but don't we actually have to trust the NHL to get it right, based on we all wondered whether this was all going to work, and it's worked perfectly.
No, this has worked
like
perfectly.
I said yesterday, this has been my favorite time watching any sport ever. Like this, I've enjoyed this more than anything. Like I was talking to our buddy Steve down at the beach, Kevin, and he's like, yeah, let's do this all the time. Like, this is how the playoffs have to be forever. Obviously we can't do that, but anyone deny that this has been incredible? I mean, it's just like, and I agree with what you're saying. It's just like, this has been for hockey.
Yeah, they got it right. They figured it out, and it's both the players and the league, and I'm sure both parties will be trying to figure out what to do, but
But they're only going to have a 2-month bubble. Here's the other difference too, Ecto. The time period to figure it out is a lot shorter than the time period that they had from when the virus first hit. Now the time period is very condensed.
But they clearly are thinking about it right now, and have been thinking about it for a while.
They're thinking about it, and I heard one plan. I heard was that it was 3 8-team divisions set up regionally, one being a Canadian division, and having and playing each team once and like over a 2-week period. So playing 7 games in 14 days, and then taking a week at home take like 2 weeks on, a week off, 2 weeks on, a week off, until they could figure out a way to get this working.
Right, but you'd have to test before that, because they'd have to quarantine if they're home to make sure that they're free from the virus. So that kind of delays that 1 week period also.
Well, let's. I want to get back to
where we are.
The 2 series, and ask Kevin, because everybody on the panel here took Vegas, and I took Vegas as well. I had Vegas in 6 games, and like we said, I thought Leonard on the 2 goals in regulation was fairly weak, but he had no chance on Radulov's goal, and Khudobin was fantastic. I'm a little surprised that Dallas is in the lead in this series, but I thought Dallas, they're big, they're good on defense. They're playing well in front of Khudobin. They have a lot of experience, not only Ben and Sagan, but it's very valuable having Corey Perry and Pavelski playing support roles. I still don't think they're going to win this series, but they're going to put a scare in Vegas if they don't win the series.
They've already put a scare into them.
Yeah.
And it's really surprising. Like I just didn't think it was possible they were going to win that last game. Mm-hmm. I thought that series had turned, and Dallas had its moment, and I mean, look at the two teams, and there's no doubt who's the deeper team, but every year there seems to be a team of destiny, and maybe Dallas is it. They've risen up when they needed to. That's for sure.
Now, I want to get everybody's thought on this because I disagreed with the call that was made. I thought Stone interfered with Khudobin. I thought it should have been no goal. It ended up being called a goal, and they got a penalty. They got called a penalty for the goalie interference. I thought he clearly, and he was going towards the crease. Heiskanen's stick was caught in between him, and Heiskanen's stick was what interfered with Khudobin, but it wouldn't have been interfering with him had Stone not pushed the stick into the back of Khudobin. So I thought it was clearly goalie interference. But
I didn't think it was. I don't think it prevented him from doing his job. The other thing is, as far as Vegas goes, did they have an extremely short shift on that first shift in overtime and couldn't get the change done? Because Radulov was completely open and everybody was chasing him. It made me think that they had called for an early line change and they screwed it up. Does everybody think that?
Well, and Dallas was changing too because Pavelski jumped on the ice when Sagan came off.
See, but Dallas, you understood. Well, no, actually, no. This game was technically in Dallas, right? So,
correct.
So Vegas could have been trying to
I think they were because
they had the longer change. I mean, look, Radulov had a perfect shot. I mean, inside the goalpost, pinged inside the goalpost. Look, to me,
the shot was perfect, but it was the opening he had.
I agree.
There was nobody in sight
in the mix there, as you said, Russ. Right? He kind of almost like he hung out on the far boards and got lost. I mean, look, Khudobin won this game. I mean, you look at the deflection save he made on Riley Smith down low. When Smith gets the puck up 6 more inches, it's a goal, but Khudobin stole this game from them with the 38 save. Vegas did not play a bad game. Leonard wasn't particularly great. He made 38 saves, Khudobin, and winning this game for Dallas.
Yeah,
it was harkening back to what Demko did the last round against them also.
I woke up with a sore groin after watching that game with Khudobin doing the contortions that he did. I don't know how he didn't tear his groin.
I mean, he thought he did at one point in time when he walked off in the middle.
The whole summary of Dallas, of them in this postseason, is the fact that after the game, the Dallas players said, "We got to play better."
Right.
They won the game, but they knew they had given up way too many shots. That's not their, and all that kind of thing. And that's been them the whole time. I mean, they won those shootouts against, I mean, not literal shootouts, but, high scoring games against Colorado. Like, they shouldn't win high scoring games against Colorado.
No, that's true.
But they did.
And now, Kevin, they're playing like the team that played in the regular season. 180 goals for, 177 goals against, second best in the NHL. Yeah. They were playing wide open offense against Calgary and against Colorado, and now they're trying to play shutdown because I think they realize that Vegas is deeper and more talented, and that's the only way they think they can win.
I think Jim Hill deserves a whole lot of credit for this.
Well, and Rick Bowness, I mean, are they the nicest GM coach combination in NHL history? Like, those two guys are both nice. But one thing I wanted to bring up, because I always remember this. When I first got the beat at USA Today in the 80s, Harry Sinden was general manager in Boston, and I was talking with him, and one day he was just talking about his pet peeves, and he goes, I hate it when people talk, well, the only reason they won is because of their goalie. The goalie stole it. He goes, is it just me, or did the goalie not become part of your team? He said, because, I pick a goal. Like, I don't choose a goalie just to put him in. Like, his job is to try to win the game for me. So he said, that drives me nuts when I hear that.
That is so funny. It's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, can we talk about the Russian goaltending here? I mean, with the three of the 4 goalies that are left right now, are are
Varlamov, Vasilevsky, and
Well, I think it was on this show, Ek. I said I believe there's a Russian goalie pipeline now that's sort of replaced Finland, where Finland was giving us all these goalies. Now it's Russia.
yeah,
Yeah.
Samsonov and Askarov, and
it's amazing.
Sturgeon and Sorokin.
The Heiskanen, obviously. I mean, I guess that pick was pretty obvious, but at the same time, I don't think it was totally obvious, right, Russ?
It wasn't to me, but HockeyProspect.com had him very, very high. And they were the ones that really did nail him. And so I heard that chatter. I don't think I bought into it as much as they did, which is obviously I was wrong, but I knew he was really good. I had him ranked high. So, no, I do think there were some that were in on it. I think scouts did know how good this kid was.
And of course,
they thought the Dallas Stars, because Nil had come from the Red Wings and his scouting staff, as Russ can tell you, he brought with them a bunch of guys. They thought they had got a Lidstrom type guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like they really believed that. They thought he was, like nobody's, Nick Lidstrom, but maybe he is. I don't know.
Well, he's looking like he is a little bit.
And it's not casting aspersions on Ray Shero or Ron Hextall with their two picks, but 3, 4, 5 in that draft were Heiskanen, Makar, and Pettersson.
Okay, but I'll tell you what the three things. So here's the rub. The rub for Pettersson was, yes, he's very skinny, and we don't know with the kind of game he plays, can he survive in the NHL? Okay, well, he's surviving.
Makar, like another guy named number 99.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
Everybody knew Makar had superstar ability. Everybody.
Yeah.
The question was, he's putting up these numbers in the AJHL.
Bingo.
Is he going to be able to replicate them because he didn't play in the Canadian Hockey League? That was the question for him. And then Heiskanen we just talked about. So I can't kill the teams. There was no way any of those three were ever going to go first or second. No way. And the Devils were looking to market their team, so that's why they took Ishir. That's the honest reason.
No, that is definitely, yeah. I mean, I remember that thing where we got to meet the players, where Ishir and Nolan Patrick were there next to each other, and we were talking to them, and I forget what building we were in, but we're in there, and we're talking to them, and I talked to them.
It was in Buffalo. We were like jammed into some place.
Yeah,
Mobile
Patrick.
basically.
Then I talked to Ishir, and I'm like, the Devils are like whoever gets first is going to take him because he's just got like all that personality. Like he just had like that thing. And Nolan Patrick was very much like the
standoffish. He was very
Canadian guy.
He was tired of answering questions about his dad being a first round pick of the Sabres because there were a lot of Buffalo reporters there, and his dad as a Sabres first round pick was not a success. So he was tired of answering those questions.
Yeah, they were. I mean, that was something else. His
dad had a good career with the Rangers, though. I mean, he scored 15, 20 goals.
James Patrick was a good player, yeah.
No, that's his uncle. His dad.
No, not James Patrick. No. His
dad. James,
Steve Patrick scored 20 goals?
15 goals, I think.
Okay.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, excellent. I mean, I think that you make a great point with Dallas does have that destiny feel. My next question is the Islanders, Tampa, which we're looking at now, and Tampa with players going down, it is 2-0, right? And 2-0, I guess they say something like, the last 35. I love these stats. This is my wife's biggest.
He had 11 goals. All right.
My wife hates these. This is her biggest pet peeve. She always says stupid stat when they come on. But the last 35 times the team has taken a 2-0 lead, 33 of them have won, right? In this round of the playoffs or whatever, when they're wearing their red underwear or whatever it is. But that's like the stat that's going on there. So
you got to tell her the historical stats. People bet based on that now.
I know they do. Yeah.
Yeah. People bet based on the fact that if you can look at 50 years of history of something, and they don't look at the team, they look at, like when there's guys that bet football that, take 7 teams that are favored by 7 at home and 12 that are 10-point underdogs on the road. And because historically, if you bet like that, they can prove that you are successful.
It's just the law of average. I guess not the law of averages, but it's just the trend. Trends are a big deal, obviously.
Yeah.
But they are, like she'll always say, you flip a coin, and if you flip it 20 times and it's heads, you think the next one's going to be tails, but it doesn't mean it's going to be tails.
No, it doesn't.
But Kevin, the problem I had, because the Islanders clearly outplayed Tampa in that game for most of the 60 minutes. And it is the biggest of daggers that a team wins with like 7 seconds left to go in the third period, a game that they were, like I said, clearly outplayed. And I think that's the reason why John Cooper was doing the scoop and pump, because he knew that he walked away with a game that they didn't deserve. Now, whether they can do that 2 more times without Braden Point, without Stamkos, that's the big
And I think Trotz knows that, and I think that's why this game will be the one that he's really going to throw everything out there. I don't think you're going to see Andrew Ladd again. I think that was silly. But I do think Trotz will try some different things. He knows that Point's not in there. And and they may try to attack Tampa early as far as being physical, because now they might be a little more susceptible. That's the one thing about the only edge the Islanders have had in this series is they have been bruising Tampa from the very start. And Tampa's more beat up now than they were when they started the series. That's their one advantage.
Kevin,
they said the Point's not playing?
They're never going to say 100%, but it seems that way, yes.
Yeah. He had no update yesterday on his status, and that I guess can only interpret that as him not playing.
Well, the thing about the Islanders, it feels like, that in order to win the cup, you always got to win games you shouldn't win, and it looks like that was the game Tampa was going to win. I mean, they could have won it in overtime too. But saying that, we all believe the Islanders could win Game 3, and then we're right where we always are. Like Game 4 is always the most important game because it's the difference usually between 3-1 and 2-2, which is a world of difference.
It's enormous, right?
Yeah. So if the Islanders can win this game, I'm sure that's what Barry's telling them. Just win this game, and then we're in Game 4, and all we got to do is win that, and we're starting over.
The Islanders have done nothing but lose games they should have won in these playoffs.
And then win big games,
and then win a game right after that. Like they should have won Game 5 and 6 in the last series against the Flyers, no questions asked. Right? They outplayed them in every which way till Thursday, and yet at the end of the day they lose. But then they come out and they still win Game 7. So I think that they're used to this. I think to them they're just like, geez, the Islanders haven't been like blown out except for obviously Game 1. Of this series, that's the only instance where they've lost the game they should have lost. Like they really.
Well, I mean, without Point, without Stamkos, with Killorn suspended for the game, you're going to probably see like Carter Verhaeghe and either what's his name, Matthew Joseph or someone like that being inserted. They're probably going to go with 12 forwards and 6 defense, because I don't think they can go with 11 forwards all game like they did. Or actually, they went 10. They went with 10 and then 9 when Point got hurt. So I think they have to have a full complement of 12 forwards. But it's dumb to say this, but it's a must-win for the Islanders because if they don't win, they're down 3-0, and the series is over with basically.
And like Kevin said, I mean, if they can win 2 in a row here and make the series 2-2, then suddenly all the injuries and all the doubt that Tampa has in there, I mean, it's just like it shifts right back, right? So it's completely.
Well, this is their chance, because I would think Point will miss at least 2 games. So to me, this is their chance. Like if they're going
out and got Goudreau and got all those guys, they have way more depth than they've ever had, right? So
they do, but I'm saying this is the Islanders' chance, because now you could key on Kucherov where you couldn't do that before, and that is your one shot to try and get these next 2 if they can.
You got to beat Vasilevsky. See, that's the thing.
Yeah, he had a great game. He may not have made a million stops, but he made the right ones.
The difference between the Islanders' other series is Vasilevsky's in the other end. I mean, and as good as Mark was or whatever, he was not Vasilevsky. I'll
tell you what he's susceptible to, though, and this is something the Islanders were starting to do, and then they gave it up, and then last game it was starting to happen late, but it just wasn't falling. Anders Lee has been causing problems in the crease for Vasilevsky, and they've got to figure out how to cause a few more of those problems.
Yeah, and also the difference is there's only one Victor Hedman, and he's on Tampa.
No, that's for sure.
Just to finish off the show here, David Pagnotta just posted about a half hour ago that there is a deal in place with Vegas and Leonard for what we described, 5 years, $25 million. That may have even been agreed to before the playoffs started. So that starts the ball rolling in terms of the goalie market. Things will start to fall into place from here. And when he's the free agent prize, when he's the guy who's the number 1 goalie in this market, and he takes $5 million for the long-term security of 5 years, I don't know how Braden Holtby or Crawford or Markstrom ask for more than $5 million.
And you know what? Honestly, I'm happy for Leonard because he wasn't even asking for 5 from the Islanders, and they wouldn't do it.
No, it was the term. It was the number of years. I think he would have taken 210 from them, and they wouldn't even go that far. They offered him a 1-year deal.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, is Mark Fleury now going to watch another Stanley Cup be won like from the bench on a team that he was like really influential in getting to that point? You know, this is that to me is really bizarre. All right, we got to go, guys. It was great. Have a great weekend, everybody. Be safe out there. When we get back, we'll be getting ready for Game 4, so it'll be kind of fun. Remember, without the buzz, it is just